You're comfortable, Maya, but I need someone who's building something.
I am.
The envelope arrived on a Tuesday morning, slipped under Maya's apartment door like it was nothing, like it wasn't a grenade wrapped in cream-colored linen paper. She almost stepped on it on her way to make coffee, still half asleep, still unbothered by the world the way only a woman who had finally found her peace could be. She picked it up, turned it over, and the moment she saw the name on the return address, Ethan Carter, something old and sharp moved through her chest. Not love. Not anymore. Something more like the ghost of a wound she thought had healed. She stood there in her kitchen in her pajamas, coffee forgotten, staring at a wedding invitation for the man who had once looked her in the eyes and told her she wasn't enough. Maya Brooks set the envelope down slowly, poured her coffee, took a long sip, and then she did something nobody expected. She smiled. Okay, she said quietly to herself, to nobody, to God, to the version of herself who used to cry over that man. Okay, let's go see how this ends. 5 years. That's how long it had been since the divorce. 5 years since Ethan had sat across from her in that lawyer's office, calm as still water, and signed his name on every page without flinching. 5 years since he'd looked at her like she was a chapter he was relieved to close. And in those 5 years, Maya had done what she always did. She'd kept her head down and kept moving. She worked as a creative director at a mid-sized branding firm in Atlanta. She had a small apartment with plants she actually kept alive, a best friend named Tasha who made her laugh until her sides hurt, and a Saturday morning routine that involved farmers markets and audiobooks and no drama. To look at her, you'd think, nice woman, quiet life, doing just fine. And you'd be right. But you'd also be missing something. Something big. Something Maya had kept tucked away her entire life like a secret she was too proud, or maybe too wise, to spend early. Tasha nearly choked on her orange juice when Maya showed her the invitation. He invited you? To his wedding? The man who told you that you were holding him back from his potential. He invited you to watch him marry somebody else. Maya leaned back on her couch and folded her legs underneath her. I think he wants me to see how well he's doing, she said. He wants closure dressed up as a celebration. Tasha stared at her. And you're going? Maya looked at her friend with those calm, unbothered eyes that had always made people underestimate how much was happening underneath. I'm going, she said simply. Tasha put her juice down. Girl, I need you to understand that I will be standing outside that venue like a getaway driver, because something is going to happen at that wedding. Maya laughed. Nothing is going to happen. Tasha picked up her juice again, slow and deliberate. Something is always going to happen when you mix pride and pretty women and open bars. She paused. I'll drive. Here is what people need to understand about Maya Brooks before the rest of this story unfolds. Because if you don't understand her, you won't understand why what happened next was so devastating and so earned at the same time. Maya grew up ordinary. Intentionally, deliberately, stubbornly ordinary. Her father, Gerald Brooks, a man whose name moved markets, whose phone calls rearranged boardrooms, whose face appeared twice on the cover of Forbes Africa, had made a decision when Maya was 12 years old. He'd sat her down in his study, this girl with her mother's eyes in his jaw, and he'd said, You are going to live your life like my money doesn't exist. You're going to work and struggle and earn and fail and try again. And when you know who you are without my name, then you'll be ready for everything that comes with it. Maya had cried. She'd been 12, but she'd agreed. And she'd kept that agreement for 28 years, through college on merit scholarships, through entry-level jobs, through a modest salary and a leased apartment. Nobody knew. Not her coworkers, not her friends, not even Tasha, not fully. And certainly not Ethan, the man she'd loved with her whole heart for 4 years, the man who had looked at her ordinary life and decided she wasn't worth staying for. Ethan Carter had married well. That was what people said. His new bride, Simone was the daughter of a real estate developer, all sharp edges and designer clothes, and the kind of beauty that arrived with money and stayed with maintenance. She was smart in the way ambitious people are smart, quick to calculate, slow to trust, and always aware of the room. The wedding was at the Ritz-Carlton in downtown Atlanta, a venue so polished it made you feel underdressed just walking past it on the sidewalk. Tasha pulled up in her car, and both women looked at the entrance. The cascading white florals, the fleet of valets, the guests arriving in clothes that cost more than some people's rent. "You sure about this?" Tasha asked. Maya smoothed her dress, a deep emerald silk, tailored and simple and quiet in the way expensive things are quiet, and nodded. "I just want to see," she said, "and then I'll leave." Tasha cut the engine. "I'll be in the lobby." Maya stepped out of the car and walked toward the entrance like she belonged there, because she did, because that is the only way to walk anywhere. She found a seat near the back of the grand ballroom, away from the main tables, away from attention. The room was extraordinary, 12-foot floral arrangements, crystal chandeliers, a live string quartet, playing something soft and European. Hundreds of guests, all of them polished and perfumed and performing wealth. Maya accepted a glass of sparkling water from a passing server, opened her program, and settled in. She did not look for Ethan. She didn't need to. She could feel the moment he saw her, a ripple of discomfort moving through the air from across the room. She glanced up briefly. Yes, there he was. Older, fuller in the face, wearing a tuxedo that fit too perfectly to be anything but anxious dressing. He stared at her for just a second too long, and then he looked away. Maya returned to her program. What she didn't see was Simone watching. Simone, who noticed everything. Simone, who had spent months hearing Ethan's edited version of his first marriage. She was sweet but simple, not really my level. We just wanted different things, and who had filed Maya Brooks away as a footnote. So when Simone's maid of honor leaned over and whispered, "That's her, over there," the ex, something hard moved through Simone's eyes. She looked at Maya in her quiet emerald dress, sitting calmly alone, and she felt something she would not name correctly. It wasn't threat. It wasn't concern. It was pride, and pride always mistakes itself for power. "She has nerve," Simone said. Her maid of honor nodded. "You want me to have security escort her out?" Simone's lips curved. "No," she said. "I'll handle it myself." After the ceremony, she turned back to her mirror with a smile that had nothing warm in it. Let her sit. For now. The ceremony was beautiful in the technical way that expensive things are beautiful. Every detail perfect, every moment choreographed. When Ethan and Simone exchanged vows, Maya felt nothing unexpected. No grief. No longing. Just a quiet reckoning with the woman she used to be. The one who had stood across from this man with her whole heart open, believing that love was enough, not knowing that he was already measuring her worth against a standard she didn't know she was failing. She remembered the last real fight they'd ever had. He'd come home from a dinner with colleagues, a little drunk and a lot honest, and he'd said it plain. Asterisk, "You're comfortable, Maya. That's fine. But I need someone who's going places. I need someone who's building something." Asterisk, she tried to explain that she was building something, carefully, on her own terms. But what was she supposed to say? That the reason she lived carefully was because she could have lived in a penthouse? That her choice of modesty was more radical than anything he'd ever done? She'd stayed quiet instead. And he'd taken her quiet for surrender, and her surrender for confirmation of everything he'd already decided. The reception began. Champagne flowed. Music lifted. Tables glittered. Maya was finishing the last of her water and preparing quietly to leave. She'd seen enough. She'd closed the chapter. She was ready to go tell Tasha it was time, when she felt a presence beside her. She turned. Simone stood over her in $40,000 worth of white dress, holding a glass of red wine. surrounded by 3 of her bridesmaids like a pastel-colored tribunal. The room didn't go quiet yet, but it began to. People close enough to notice turned. Maya looked up at Simone calmly. "Congratulations," Maya said. "It was a beautiful ceremony." Simone looked at her the way people look at things they've already decided to destroy. "I don't know what made you think coming here was appropriate," Simone said, loud enough now that the nearest tables went still. "My husband's pathetic little ex-wife, showing up to a celebration you were never supposed to be part of." Maya set her glass down slowly. "I was invited," she said, her voice even and low. "By Ethan." Something flickered in Simone's eyes. Irritation at that truth, but she didn't stop. "Let me make something clear to you," she said, her voice climbing now, working the room, playing the audience that was gathering around them. "Whatever you thought was going to happen today, whatever sad little fantasy you built in your head about showing up here, it's over. He chose me. He'll always choose me. Because I'm exactly what you could never be." Maya looked at her quietly. "And what is that?" Simone smiled. "Enough." Then she poured the wine. A full glass of deep red wine, tipped deliberately over Maya's head, cascading down over her face, her hair, her emerald silk dress, splashing cold and humiliating onto the floor around her. The room erupted, gasps, a scream, someone's chair scraping back. Simone's bridesmaids laughed. Across the room, Ethan stood frozen, his face cycling through 5 different expressions, and landed finally on the one that said he was going to do nothing. Simone pointed at the door. "Security. Remove her." 2 men in black appeared at Maya's side. She stood slowly. She didn't cry. She didn't raise her voice. She reached up and touched the wine dripping from her jaw, and she looked at it on her fingers with a strange, calm expression. The face of a woman who understands that some moments are not humiliations. They are turning points. She looked at Simone one final time and said, simply and quietly, "Okay." Then she began to walk toward the exit with her head up and her spine straight, dripping red wine on marble floors, and every single step she took was measured and dignified and utterly controlled. Tasha appeared in the lobby the moment Maya pushed through the doors, took one look at her, and reached for her phone. "Tell me who did this." "Put the phone down," Maya said. "I'm fine." "You are soaking wet with red wine, Maya. You are not fine." "Tasha." Her voice stopped her friend cold. "I need you to call my father." The lobby of the Ritz-Carlton went quiet in a different way than the ballroom had. It went quiet the way it does when power walks through the door. The first car arrived 3 minutes after Maya made that call. Then a second. Then a third. A convoy of black SUVs moving through the circular drive with the kind of unhurried confidence that money buys and entitlement can only imitate. Through the lobby glass, Maya and Tasha watched them arrive. The valet scrambled. The hotel manager appeared from nowhere, straightening his jacket, his face shifting from polished neutrality into something that looked close to alarm. Tasha turned to Maya slowly. "Maya, those are not regular cars." "No." "Maya, how many times have I told you that you were too calm to just be a regular person?" Maya almost smiled. "A few. I need you to start talking right now because 6 men in suits just got out of those cars, and they are all on their phones, and they all look like they run things." Maya turned to look at her friend, her dress still wine-stained, her dignity still completely intact, and she said something she hadn't said out loud in a very long time. "Tasha, my father is Gerald Brooks." The silence that followed was complete. Tasha opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "The Gerald Brooks." "Yes." Gerald Brooks of Brooks Holdings, the man Forbes called the most influential businessman in Black America for 3 consecutive years. "That Gerald Brooks?" "That is my father, yes." Tasha sat down on a lobby bench. "I need a minute." "We don't have one." Because Gerald Brooks had arrived. He walked through the hotel entrance in a charcoal suit, 71 years old, and carrying himself like a man who had never been rushed by anything. With 3 senior executives flanking him, a personal secretary keeping pace, and the kind of quiet authority that silences rooms before it even opens its mouth. The hotel manager practically materialized at his side. The front desk staff stood straight. Guests in the lobby turned and stared the way people stare when they feel the gravity of a room shift, but don't yet understand why. Gerald Brooks walked directly to his daughter, looked at her wine-stained dress, and something moved through his eyes, slow and cold and terrifying if you knew what to look for. He took off his suit jacket and placed it around her shoulders, gently, the way fathers do. "Who?" he said quietly. "One word." Maya shook her head. "Let me tell it," she said. "Come inside with me." What happened next unfolded in real time in front of 340 guests, 12 wedding vendors, 6 hotel staff, and a photographer who would later have to decide what to do with everything his camera caught. Gerald Brooks walked into that ballroom not loudly, not dramatically, but with the force of something inevitable. His executives filed in behind him. The string quartet stopped playing. Conversations died. Simone, still flushed with the victory of her little scene, looked up from her table and saw the room go still in a way she couldn't explain, and her eyes moved to the entrance, and she saw Maya walking back in. Head up, jaw set, wearing her father's jacket over her wine-stained dress, and she felt, for the first time that evening, something she had no name for yet. Fear. Ethan saw too. He stood up slowly, his champagne glass still in his hand, his face draining of everything comfortable. Because the men who had walked in behind Maya were not nobody. He recognized one of them. Victor Osei, the CFO of Meridian Capital, a man Ethan's own company had spent 18 months trying to get a meeting with. Another face he knew from the news, a senior partner at one of Atlanta's most powerful law firms. And in the center, commanding the room without trying, Gerald Brooks, who was looking directly at his daughter with the eyes of a man who had built empires and was now deciding what to level. Gerald spoke to the room the way men speak when they've never needed to shout. "Good evening," he said. "I apologize for the interruption. My name is Gerald Brooks. I understand this is a celebration, and I have enormous respect for this hotel and the guests in attendance." He paused. "I came because my daughter called me. She called me because she came to this event as a guest, sat quietly in this room, and was publicly humiliated and physically assaulted by the bride." The word assaulted landed like a stone in a still pond, ripple after ripple moving through the room. Simone was on her feet. "That is completely exaggerated. She was drenched with wine in front of hundreds of people and then ordered removed by security," Gerald said, not looking at Simone, not raising his voice, just stating facts the way a man states facts when facts are all he needs. "I am not here to make a scene. I am here because my daughter has been patient her entire life. With circumstances, with people, with men who mistook her humility for limitation." His eyes moved to Ethan then, just a brief, measured look, the kind that sees everything and says almost nothing. Ethan did not move. He looked like a man who had just understood, too late, the scale of his mistake. "My daughter," Gerald continued, "is the sole heir to Brooks Holdings and all its subsidiaries. She will assume the position of Group CEO at the 1st of next month, in full, officially, publicly, in the announcement we had already planned before tonight's events. But I want the people in this room to understand something." He turned slightly, his voice quiet and absolute. "Maya did not come here to compete. She did not come here to reclaim anything. She came because she was invited, by a man who spent 4 years of his life with her and somehow never understood what he had. She was going to leave quietly. She was going to let all of you have this night. It was only when she was humiliated that I received the call I never wanted to receive." He looked now at Simone, directly, The way powerful men look at people who have made a costly mistake without knowing it. My company holds the refinancing on your father's largest real estate development. We hold 14% of the debt restructuring he's been quietly trying to complete for the past 2 years. The color left Simone's face. That is not a threat, Gerald said. It is simply information. The same kind of information people tend to want before they pour wine on a woman they don't know. He reached into his inside breast pocket and produced an envelope, cream-colored, thick, sealed. He set it on the nearest table. My legal team will be in touch about tonight's incident. The rest is between you and your conscience. Then he turned to Maya, and his voice changed the way voices change when the audience disappears and only love remains. Are you ready to go? Maya looked at her father for a moment, and in that moment you could see it all on her face. Every year of living small on purpose, every year of earning without credit, every moment she'd been underestimated by people who only saw what she'd chosen to show them. She breathed in slow. She breathed out slower. She took his arm. Yes, she said. I'm ready. They walked out together, Gerald Brooks and his daughter, moving through a room so silent you could hear the chandeliers. As she passed the table where Ethan stood, Maya slowed, just slightly, just enough. She didn't stop. She didn't speak. She just looked at him. The man who had once told her she had no potential. The man who had stood still while someone poured wine over her head. The man who had signed those divorce papers without a single moment of hesitation. She looked at him with nothing in her face that resembled bitterness, and that was the most devastating thing about it, because bitterness would have meant she still needed something from him, and she had never needed anything from him that mattered. She looked at him the way you look at a place you used to live and don't miss, and then she walked past. Tasha fell into step behind them. She had been standing near the entrance the whole time, and as she passed Simone's table, she paused, reached over, picked up a full glass of red wine, held it up in a tiny private toast, and set it back down without drinking it. Then she walked out. Nobody tried to stop any of them. What happened in that ballroom after the Brooks family left is the kind of thing people talk about for years. The wedding photographer later said it was the most uncomfortable silence he'd ever experienced professionally. Simone sat back down at her table and didn't speak for a long time. Her father's name had been spoken in that room in a way that would follow both of them. Ethan stood by the head table, his champagne warm in his hand, looking at the space where Maya had been, and something settled over him that no expensive tuxedo and no beautiful venue could lift. The full, clear, crushing weight of understanding who he had thrown away and what it had cost him to do it. Not the money, not the inheritance, the woman. The woman who had loved him without conditions, who had chosen simplicity in a world that could have given her anything, who had been building herself quietly and steadily into someone extraordinary, and all he had seen was ordinary. His mother, who had come in from Birmingham for the wedding and had been sitting near the front trying to process what she'd just witnessed, walked over to him later and said one sentence. I always liked Maya. She went back to her seat and didn't say another word all night. 3 weeks later, the announcement ran in the business press, all of it. Maya Brooks named CEO of Brooks Holdings effective immediately. Her photograph, the same calm face, the same quiet eyes, appeared on the front pages of every major business publication. Her father gave one short interview. My daughter, he said, has always known exactly who she is. She simply waited until the right moment to let the world catch up. Tasha, who had been handling this information for 3 weeks in increasingly dramatic stages of processing, called Maya on the morning the announcement dropped and said, I need you to know that I have been your best friend for 11 years. You have, Maya agreed. And in 11 years, you never once told me your father was one of the richest black men in America. He insisted, Maya, Tasha, I need you to understand that I have been lending you money for concert tickets. Maya laughed, full and warm and unguarded. The laugh of a woman who had come through everything and arrived exactly where she was supposed to be. "I know," she said, "and I paid you back every time. That's not the point. I love you, Tasha. I love you too. I'm sending you a bill for emotional damages." Maya was still laughing when she hung up. She stood at the window of her new office on the 32nd floor, Atlanta spread out below her like an offering. She thought about the girl who had grown up deliberately ordinary, who had loved a man who couldn't see past the surface of her life, who had sat in a wine-soaked dress in a hotel lobby and made one phone call. She thought about what her father used to say, that worth isn't proved by announcing yourself. It's proved by what you do in the quiet, in the private, in the years when nobody is watching and you could coast, but you choose not to. She had built herself, piece by piece, honestly, without shortcuts or safety nets, exactly as he'd asked. And now, finally, the world was going to see the whole of her. Not because she needed it to, but because she'd earned it. Maya Brooks turned from the window and sat down at her desk. She had work to do. She always did. And Ethan? He went back to his life and his beautiful new wife and his polished new world. But some things leave marks that never quite fade. A look in someone's eyes as they walk past, the way a room goes silent, the moment you understand, too late, that you were the one who was never enough. That is its own kind of sentence, quiet and long and self-administered. Because the cruelest thing about underestimating someone is that you have to live with the knowing of it, the knowing of what you dismissed, what you discarded, what you watched walk out the door without lifting a finger to stop it. Ethan Carter would have to live with that knowing every single day. And Maya Brooks? Maya Brooks had never felt more free in her life. If you stayed until the very end of this story, then you are exactly the kind of person this channel exists for. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now is the time. Because this is just one story, and there are more where this came from. And the next one is already coming. Hit subscribe. I'll see you there.